Hi. So today we're going to be transplanting lavenders from the places where we stuck them, and they grew roots over the last summer and the winter, and then we dug them up. So this is where we're picking up some lavenders that we've rooted directly into the ground. It's got its positives and negatives about doing this, because you've got the potential for disease, but you've also got the amazing ability of plants to just thrive under adverse conditions. I mean, these are just little sticks of lavender with leaves on them when we put them in, and we do that for here in the Northwest. I do that between, say, the middle of May and the end of June. That's the only time that we can do it, that we can actually take the cuttings and put them in the ground for this to work. And it works really well. We have a watering system, so we sprinkle them once or twice a day. What you've got here is you've got little plants with roots on them that we can then take, and we'll take these guys, these little cuttings. Some of them are better than others. You know, this one's looking pretty excited to get going with the program. So I have to be careful here when we take cuttings. We put them about an inch and a half apart, and then we divide the types of lavender, if we do more than one in a bed, by not very much. So I've got another kind of lavender right in here, so I don't want to mix them up if I can avoid it. And you can see, I mean, I'm showing you my trade secrets, so fellow lavender growers, here you go. But it's interesting to see the difference between the lavender roots and roots from the weeds that are around it, if you get a chance to see them. Next time I see, yeah, I think you can sort of see here. So I don't know how well you can see, actually. But in here, in this root ball, you've got some dark roots, but we also have some of these really light ones. Well, once you've done this for a little while, you know that those light ones, were part of a weed. So you want them to go away. And then we just have the lavender. And I put them in a bowl of water here, and there's just a whole bunch of little lavender cuttings with roots on them. Now, if you're growing for commercial purposes, you want to be careful about if you have diseases or not in your soil, so you have to be careful about that. But for your home, not a problem. You can just grow them for yourself and do whatever you want. So what we're going to do is put these guys, I've got some pots here with some special soil that I've mixed up, and so now I'm just going to, put one plant per pot that we've got here that have been nicely soaked so the roots don't dry out, because you don't want them to dry out while you're working with them. Otherwise, that's not a good thing, and the plant will be so unhappy it might die. So that's where we soak them in water and give them a head start. Sometimes people put a little bit of hydrogen peroxide in the water to help with this issue of any diseases or germs or whatever in the soil. Then we put them in to those pots, and we add soil, and we pack it down firmly but not too firmly, so that the water that we will then water them with will be able to seep up through the soil, and the plant can drink from this and get the water it needs to get these roots really nicely set. So what I do is I take this flat. So what we have here is a barrel of water, and what we like to do is fill the water and let it stand at least overnight so that it gets tempered, which means two things for us anyway. It means that it gets to be the same temperature as the rest of the greenhouse, but also if there's any chlorine, it can evaporate. And when we're dealing with well water, but it's a community well, and so they chlorinate it. So we don't want that to happen. So then what I do is I take a watering can, and grab some water out of here. So we've got the water, and we're going to use that, and we have a tray underneath this flat that will hold water, and then what we do is we just fill it with water until it shows, and it's got at least roughly about half an inch maybe of water throughout the whole tray. And what will happen is that the plants will suck that water up, and they will use that to water themselves. And then we don't have to worry about getting the leaves wet, because you don't want to get the leaves wet, because then you have a greater chance of mold or other things. And plus lavender, it's dry. It's from the Mediterranean climate, which is very dry, and it likes it that way. However, in the beginning, we do give them a lot of water just to get themselves oriented with their new feet, their new home for their feet. So we've got that flat full now of starts of 18 of these in this area. That's 3.5-inch pots, and there's 18 of them. And I'm going to write down the name of this lavender, which is Impress Purple. And I'm going to date the back of it just to show when I did it. And then it's done. Sometimes in this videos you'll hear an airplane flying over pretty close, and it's a little airplane, and it was built by the one that we usually hear anyway, is been built by our friend Don, and he on a beautiful day will go flying anytime he can. But he's also the guy that makes our machinery, and he keeps our machinery going, and he fixes it, and he invents new things, and without him we wouldn't be anywhere near as able to do things as we are today. So without a good machinery person and a mechanic, a farm just can't function. And I think we forget about that in farming, of how important some of the things that they know how to do is. So imagine having a huge farm, and you've seen all those tractors out in the fields, and it looks really cool. But behind that, there's legions of people maintaining those tractors. And every farmer usually has a huge machine shop and a repair area in their barns, and it's just amazing the amount of time and energy that goes into keeping their equipment going. So that's just a plug for understanding the engineering and mechanics and mechanical know-how of farmers. So one of the things that I've always thought was really important at some level was the fact that having things at human scale is really important, and that having something that's really big or really amazing and all of that, I mean, that's fun, and it's, it can be useful for a lot of things, but for most of us, it's about being a person doing something that is of benefit, and how to do things locally, how to grow things right from your own place, if you have a farm or if you have land to grow on. And that's one of the reasons why I got into propagating lavender in the first place, is that I wanted to take the lavender that was growing on the farm now and propagate it. So I've done it in a couple of different ways. One is to do this propagation by taking cuttings, which is it's called clonal propagation, and people do that because they want the plant that they come out of their propagating to be just like the one that they got it from. And lavender, when it's grown from seed, if the seed's viable at all, but if it's viable at all, it doesn't necessarily grow to look exactly like its parents. It's sort of like a person that way. Nobody looks exactly like their parents. They're a mixture, or they're picking up genes from some cousin or whatever from far away. So one of the things that I decided to do was to collect the seeds off of my lavender plants and plant them. So I have flats, which I will get in a different shot. I have flats of lavender that I've started from seed, and you'll see how small these plants are, and they're like 2 years away from being viable, or at least a year from now, and they will grow, and they'll each be their own person, so to speak, or their own plant. And I have a whole field of them where, well, at least a part of a field of them where I did a whole lot of seeds from this one variety that had been grown next to another variety that was, so the one that the mother variety was Fulgate, and the father variety, if you will, was one called Pink Hidcoat. So there was a swath of Pink Hidcoat next to it. And so the plants that came out as a result have a lot of variability in color, all the way from deep purple to pink, or even almost white, some of them. So, so it's really kind of fun, and there's other other variations in how they look as well. But again, back to my point, it's about growing from something that you can get right here, and in this day and age, where we're kind of stuck, I'm kind of glad I did that. So just to put it in perspective, all of these plots of plants here came out of only a part of one of those beds where I was showing you I was just digging up a bunch of the rooted cuttings. So we get lots and lots of plants that we've grown ourselves from our own lavender, which is very satisfying, and it's pretty productive too. So you can see that with these plants here, they'll be growing for the next couple of months. They'll be establishing their roots into the pots, and they'll be fluffing up so that they look better, and they're filling out, growing more leaves, and they'll be happier. We have to be sure to keep them watered and fed, because we'll feed them some fish emulsion to help them, and any other fertilizer that we think we need. We used to be certified organic, so we grow that way. We are not certified now, but we used to be, and we chose not to be after a while. That is why we are doing what we do, and you get to see it, and I get to share it with you. It's so fun.